Let's talk about measures of central tendency for skewed distributions. On the left, you see a positively skewed distribution. And when it's stacked up on the left, when there are more low scores than high scores, you always know it's positively skewed. And remember, when we're going from left to right on the x-axis, that means from low to high. It's easy to identify the mode. The mode is always the tallest place, what they informally call the hump. Now, if we just sort of take for granted where the median is, just sort of trust us, that the median is the place that bifurcates that curve exactly in half. Now, it's hard to tell by looking because you've got that long sloping part that captures an area under the curve that doesn't necessarily look like the part to the left, right? But let's just take for granted that the median is the place where the curve is evenly bifurcated. Okay. In that case, with a positive skew, the mean is dragged down toward the infrequently occurring scores. And I'll give you an example of this. National income statistics, as I've mentioned before, this is the way that they look. I've got a lot of people over towards the left with modest incomes. And of course, college professors are counted among them. Then out towards the right there, you have famous people that own businesses like Bezos or Oprah Winfrey or people like that. But you've also got totally obscure people that are Wall Street financiers that often make above $100 million. Just absolutely astonishing incomes based on their leadership over hedge funds and whatnot. In that case, those people, although there are few of them relatively, drag the mean down toward them, if you will, with respect to the income that they make. So, if there's a lot of people that make, and the great majority, huge majority of people make less than 100,000, but then there are people out there that make 100 million or more. In that case, they have a gigantic influence over the mean. And when I say gigantic, it might just be 4,000 or 5,000. So I think our median income here in the U.S. is 56,000. And what that means is half of all people make less than 56,000 and half of all people make more. Now, depending on your station, when you get out, that may seem like a lot or a little. But bear in mind, people in major urban centers make a lot of money. So there was a professor here at SFA that had what we might consider to be a pretty modest salary, and then almost doubled it when he recently moved to a northeastern state. And why is that? Well, of course, everything, many expenses up there are radically higher, including living, first and foremost, for rents and mortgages. So a house that's, $140K here could be at $500K up in the north central United States or northeastern United States. So anyway, national income statistics are a perfect example where things are stacked up toward the left, but they tend to be very infrequent toward the right, the higher scores, but nonetheless have a huge influence over that mean and drag it down toward it. Oh, by the way, I was going to mention this. The median income is roughly 56, and I think the mean is 60. And I know that's only 4,000 different, but nonetheless, it's influenced by those higher income earners. And even if we start to get crazier wealth, which we will, I think that's the way democratic capitalism works. It may be the case in 25 years, in the year 2045, that we have our first trillionaire. A million. That's what a trillion is. We'll have somebody that's a trillionaire, and Bezos is 1/10 of the way there already. In that case, it won't influence the median. The median, the beautiful thing about it, it is not influenced by outliers. Let's take the reverse. On the right, letter B, I have a negative skew. They're stacked up toward the right. The modes are easily identifiable, and this is just a mirror image. If we take for granted where the median is, the bifurcating point, if you agree that that's where it is, the mean gets dragged down towards the lower scores in this case. So we may have some infrequently occurring, but nonetheless influential low scores. And the example I always give, and it's not very creative, is driving test scores. Everybody that takes a driving test, or let's say the majority, are motivated to pass it because it represents a liberating, circumstance in life to be able to go out and drive yourself to the grocery. I'll never forget that. When I was age 16, my favorite thing to do is go out and get a half gallon of milk. So the family needed milk, and I'd go get it and come back, 12 minutes later feeling like I really did something interesting. But yeah, that's what I think is probably the reality of driving test scores, that there's a huge stack of people that pass it, but then you might have some people that get near zeros. very low scores. And why might that be? Well, geez, they may have sort of panicked during the test, or they're just not ready to drive. And I've known 16-year-olds like that just decided not to drive for whatever reason. They thought maybe they just weren't ready for it. It seemed scary to them, or they thought their family would press them into service, running errands, or gosh knows what. But that's a good example, I think, where scores stack up on the right. Also, an easier test. I mean, to be honest with you, in the past, my finals tend to be shorter than the other tests, and I've found a negative skew where the scores stack up on the high end just because there's radically less material, particularly in my Psych 133 tests.